Okay. Well, probably a little ahead of myself, but let's see if this goes a little more smoothly.
Coffee's running.
Thank you.
And your coffee cup is...
We're on live. Oh. Don't care, but we're on live. Yeah. Appreciate it. Okay. Now we are slowly getting things organized, and we'll eventually get this right. I will tell you, today was just with touch and go whether or not I was going to make it here at all. Because as I think I told you guys before yesterday, I threw my back out about a week ago. This morning things were going reasonably well, and then I spent too long sitting down painting with my back basically bent over like this. Net result, I threw the thing out again. So I got about 3 hours this morning that was really good, and then I was hooped. So now it just boils down to a case of going one step at a time here, getting things organized and seeing what I've overlooked. Where are we here? Thought something else had come up. Ah, perfect. That works out quite nicely. And yeah, that would make total sense. Anyway, what I ended up doing there, I'm just killing a little bit of time here. As I discussed yesterday, the real main topic, I'm going to be looking at soulmates, twin flames, and soul families today. Quite frankly, just like I did yesterday. But the reason I do it that way is because of the fact that there are people on both sides of the world. This way, if you don't catch it, if you don't happen to catch it, you've got an opportunity to take a look at the same topic. Okay, probably new questions from people. And again, when we're dealing with the questions, whatever you do write your questions in all caps, as it makes it easier for me to find them. I'm just going to add this little piece in here. Just trying to catch a rhythm here, and I'll tell you, when you can't breathe because of pain, it becomes really fun. Not. Now, here's the thing. What you're seeing here is the fact that I am actually typing with both hands. My left hand is coming back on track. Okay, this is just one of those little things I figured out. If you actually keep working at something, it's easier to actually make it happen. Now, I'm going to enter the real main body of the topic at about quarter after, giving people a chance to get into the room. Slowly but surely, we'll get it figured out. Okay, now, like I said, I am not, much as I'm really happy with the way certain things have gone. Let's just take a peek at something here. Go into my YouTube channel itself. And what am I looking at here? That's always fun. Okay. Take a look at this. All I'm doing is going in to see where I'm standing as far as the actual. I am now, I was aiming, originally my goal. I set goals, little small goals I can be pretty certain I get to. Okay. So, of course, the last goal, my last marker was 250 subscribers. Now, this is just a small subscription, It's a small following, really. Okay. Do I expect to compete with the bigwigs? Not anytime soon. A lot of the bigwigs have been at this for 10 years. I've only been at this for about a month now with the live streams. Okay. The really neat part about it is that what I find is that staying focused on all of these, okay, staying focused on it actually helps me keep my own life in order as well, which is why I said it's actually kind of beneficial in a way for me. Okay, now I'm just looking to, oh, look at that. Found a way to do that properly. Okay, I now have a way to track down where I belong, like where I'm striving to get to. Nice part about it, I've got like 4 monitors here on this computer, in particular computer, but that means that I can actually get it down where I'm working with it. And we blow that up. And now we've got that, and we go tickety. And that should put me right into where I'm aiming for. Yep, there we go. We're coming online.
Yep,
so,
there we go.
Okay, don't need
Coming
that.
online. Yep, so, there we go. Okay, don't need
that. There. Now I've got it set up right beside me. Okay, so I've got my main screen here that I'm working with. But I've got another monitor here that's a little closer so I can actually see I can see any questions coming up a little more readily. I'm still striving to figure out how things work. Okay. One thing I'm really happy about is quite literally the fact that I've had a lot of help to get this up and running. But there's a little button down in the bottom right-hand corner there. Okay. That is the button used if you desire to subscribe to this live feed and to my channel. Okay. Let me just see here. I was looking at something. There we are. I'm going to give you just a little bit of statistical background because look at that. Guess I'm a little bit more in order or ahead of myself than I thought, but that's okay. So when I take a look at my dashboard here, where is my dashboard? Of course. Customize channel, then we go over to the dashboard. This is a third monitor up here I'm looking at. Now, the thing I found, okay, is there's a lot going on as far as different information coming out. Now, I'm not saying I've got all the answers by any functional stretch, and many of my views are questionable to many people. All I'm suggesting is that you take a look at it, okay? Because the reality of it is, when I'm taking a look at the view I've got and the tools that I'm personally using, okay, that's where things get to be a little bit screwy. Yeah, I do not need that sort of thing. You know, these funny little things called cell phones are a royal pain in the neck, if you ask me. That's wrong. There we go. So we are like I said, we are live. I'm on a little earlier. So if you're tuning into this at the beginning here, I got on about 10 minutes ahead of schedule. Okay. I got on, just about 10 minutes ahead of schedule. I will be going on at quartering, like right now, it is 7:53. Okay. It's 7:53 PST. I'll be entering into the majority of this particular feed regarding soulmates. Regarding soulmates, twin flames, and soul families. I'll be starting the real meat of it at quarter after. Right now, it's just a question of getting things up and running, finding a rhythm, and then carrying on from there. Now, some of the topics that are coming up, and understand, I will be, when I'm dealing with these topics, okay, these are ones I will be discussing the same topic on Saturday night from 8 p.m. on Saturday morning from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then again, the same topic on Sundays from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. And the reason for that is to ensure that people on all sides of the world have an opportunity to actually tap in. Okay. Of course, if you miss one, you've got, or if you're not going to be able to make one, if you either miss Saturday, you'll be able to tap in on Sunday night. If you're not going to be able to make Sunday night, you can always catch the same topic first thing Saturday morning. Okay. And not Lo, how are we doing? Hey. And lo and behold, came here from Spaced Out Radio. Welcome aboard. The nice part about the complicated part for me is this is still very new, so pardon the rough edges, but that's the way my life goes. Just a quick reminder, lo and behold, if you've got questions, absolutely put the questions in the chat room, but please put them in all caps so that I can actually track them down. Now, since you came from Spaced Out Radio, a lot of the setup here was really helped out, was really added to by Dave. By Dave Scott off Spaced Out Radio. Okay. And the fact he seems to track 4 or 5 different chat rooms at the same time is absolutely amazing from my end. Would that I was able to track it and to track it that well. And you're more than welcome there, lo and behold. The way I look at it, when these live streams are still handled essentially the same way. Okay, and what I mean by that is when people have a question, absolutely ask. It doesn't matter if it's on the topic we're working on. I still find it easier to tailor make it to the listening audience. Okay, in that way, the questions that you require being answered can be answered more readily. And because it's a live stream, I'm not, shall we say, because I don't have quite as many questions coming through yet, oftentimes I can take a little more time to actually give an answer. The difficult part here is I spent the majority of my life very reclusive. People have asked me, have you seen this video? Do you know about this particular newscast? I don't research. Okay, I just don't. I never have. I've always gotten lost in it. So I figure the information I work with is what I've personally gone through. Okay, and when we're talking about soulmates, the neat part in this, where is it? That one there. Okay. This little series, available on Amazon. Right, it is a probably should have held that up there, but this is the Yldrbac Chronicles, and the thing with it is this whole series started off in a very bizarre fashion. But the issue that I'm going to be talking about tonight, soulmates, twin flames, soul families, I cover that many other similar topics right smack in the middle of that whole Yldrbac Chronicles. Because the reality of it is a lot of what goes on in there is based on things I've personally gone through or people or events that I've personally borne witness to. Okay. Now, what ended up happening when I wrote that, because that takes place after the end of the Greetings Poetically. Glad you made it. When I started writing the Yldrbac Chronicles, it came to my attention that these topics, things like soulmate, where does the soulmate come from? Why is there a soulmate at all? And how does it all fit in? In the Chronicles, now, in the first 3 books that are coming out, 2 are already out. The third one is the tail end of the overall story, but it takes you back to where it all began, and it will be in book 1. Okay, in book 1, Yldrbac, the beginning years, okay, is where I start actually covering that. But that particular part of the story. Good morning, Carl. How we doing? That that particular part of the story, I cover the soulmates, where they started, where it all began. Where it all began, when it all began, call it what you will. The actual title, the working title right now is Where It All Began. I will be covering the soulmates. Okay. I'll be covering the soulmates, the twin flames, the soul family, all of that inside those. Now, here's where things got really entertaining from my end. In the process of everything I was working on, okay, and like I said, that's the first in the series. That's the second one. As you can see, they're in print. Okay. Those 2 are available through Author House, through Amazon, through Barnes and Noble. This one was the one that really surprised me when I put it together. I started putting this together. Every one of these races are ones that I've personally dealt with. Okay, but the neat part about it, where are we here? Greetings, Daisy. How you doing? And Karmic Partners, the answer to your question there is yes, we will be covering that. And as a matter of fact, it fits beautifully in with soulmates, etc., which is the topic tonight. So absolutely glad you brought it up. Karmic Partners are people that you may not be related to them. Okay, they may not be part of your soul family, but they are people that you probably met throughout your lifetimes, maybe not even on this planet. Okay, but they are simply what I call really, really close friends. I mean, a partner is somebody that helps you through things in my eyes. And karmic partners are usually ones that you've come across, that you've dealt with in the past. Okay. Now, is it easy enough to find them? From my standpoint, yes. From yours, probably not. Okay. But a karmic partner is very similar to a member of your soul family. But what it really boils down to is you've got 2 people that are getting along, 2 souls that get along. And we'll get into the breakdown of the whole soulmate thing in just a few minutes. But basically what it boils down to is you've got 2 that are broken and they've got their own soulmates. You yourself are not likely their soulmate, but you may be really good friends with this person, and thereby they keep coming up. Now, one of my own karmic partners is a chap by the name of Fenyon. Now, Fenyon I met decades back. When I first met Fenyon, we met during the bubonic plague. Okay, so we're talking, I met him 700 years ago. Right, and then again, I met him, and I'd have to go back and double check, but I think it was somewhere in the 15th century. Okay, I think. Actually, I should probably look that up, see if I can find it in a hurry. Nice thing about having multiple, there we go. Nice thing about having multiple monitors is I can look it up. And where are we? We take a look at where is it? There we go. Oh. Now, okay, I think I got part of that a little screwy. Pardon me for being a little scrambled. Still in a whole pile of pain today. Okay. Where are we here? Oh, I got it backwards. The first time I met Fenyon, okay, when I first met Fenyon, this is the same sort of a problem. When you meet people, you try and piece together when you met them. When I first met Fenyon and I were both, well, we were running around at somewhere around about 1160. Okay, so we're talking about 900 years ago when I first met him. Now, we had teamed up. We were both not, I mean, we were nice in a sense, but quite frankly, we were both thieves. We were both lock specialists. When I first met him, we had a great time together. Okay, we both specialized in locks, but we specialized in two different types. And this partner, we became really, really good friends. Okay, we do a lot of jobs together. Yeah, that does mean we were breaking the law left and right, quite intentionally. But I had a different reason for it. In my case, somebody would turn around and go, "Oh, I just got a lock. It's completely unpickable. It cannot be broken into." So what I would do is I would case the place out. I would case the person out, find out if they were decent. If they were a decent person, I would break into their house. I would pick the lock and empty it completely. But what I'd do is I'd leave a message in the lockbox. You were wrong. But the money that was in that lockbox, I would put somewhere else easily findable in the house, usually in their bed, usually under their covers sort of thing. And then I'd take off. If the person was a creep, was really treating people poorly, I'd still do the same thing. I'd take their money. I'd empty their lockbox, and I'd go, okay. I'd open it up because they're saying it's unpickable, and I'd leave a message. You're wrong. You were wrong. Now, the nice part about that is if the person was being a problem, I would turn around. I'd turn around and go, okay, they're being a creep. They're being problematic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep enough money to run me a couple of weeks. And the rest of it, I would distribute to people that I knew required it. Okay. Greetings, Nightmare. Glad you could join us. I turned around, and of course, that was my way of dealing with it. I didn't actually want the money. The problem for me, well, I wanted the money, but I wanted just enough to live on. I didn't live high on the hog. But the thing with Fenyon is he specialized in a whole different type of lock. And considering everybody in here is pretty much adult, I suspect, but the type of lock that Fenyon used to specialize in, and nobody would ever report him because he specialized in chastity belts. So, of course, we'd get together. He would deal with distractions and deal with that type of lock. I would go and deal with the rest of it. Okay, many years later, to be frank, that many years later, looking here, we're looking at 1160. So we go ahead into 1348, about 200 years later, I ran into him again. Only in this case, we were in England. Well, we were in England last time, but we were in England again. And this time the bubonic plague hit, but we were both coroners. And as it turned out, we were both immune to the plague. Looking back on it, I do suspect the reason we were immune to it was because by being coroners, we were always washing everything we dealt with. And that may well have been why we stayed healthy. Okay. So, I mean, we ran together for a number of years there, right through the bubonic plague. Okay, and we went from being absolute adversaries, because at that time, you were dealing with a lot. We had four coroners in the city at the time. And therefore, it was really slim pickings until the plague hit. Greatest news for us was the plague hit. Well, it was great news, except in my case, I lost my wife and my 2 kids. Okay, seems to be a recurring theme here. I've done that a number of times where I've lost my wife and my 2 kids. You know, I did that on that lifetime. I also did that about another 150, 200 years later. Lost a wife and 2 kids, and the really intriguing part of it, this lifetime, is I currently have an ex-wife and 2 kids. Now, in this case, I didn't lose them. I know where they are. Well, of course, in the case of the bubonic plague, I knew exactly where they were. They died. Okay. But this is where a soul partner, where a karmic partner can come in. You keep coming back and meeting people. Fenyon is one of those people for me. We are not bound in from a soulmate or soul family standpoint. We're completely isolated. But to this day, in this case, he's hanging around in the spiritual world and is staying in contact with me, what many people would consider a ghost. He hasn't moved on yet. We'll be getting back together again next lifetime. See, the thing with that whole issue is when you come into a life, you come in to meet with certain people to gain certain wisdoms, but it's set up before you become a corporeal entity. Before you pick your new vehicle. Fenyon and I are planning on getting back together again for a reunion. This time, it'll be the first time we've been together. I'm looking at my list here, and my list of lifetimes I've already got documented. And before you go there, yes, this is one of those extra books that I'm in the middle of writing. Okay, now let's see. He wasn't there. So the last time I was actually around Fenyon in the physical world was, frankly, way back when we take a look at 1160. So it's been, 1160, we've been almost 1,000 years out of contact. Nightmare. Yeah, the soul contract. The funny thing with the soul contract is when you come in with a set of wisdoms, a set of goals that you desire to experience this lifetime. Okay, this is why I say why people go, it's preordained. Well, it really isn't. You set up what you're aiming at, what your contract is. But this is a contract with yourself, not a contract with somebody else. It's not even a contract with God. Okay, or whatever you want to call him. Okay, it's an issue of this is why I desire to gain wisdom around. Now, when you get here, odds are you forgot all about it. Okay, that's usually the way it's set up. You forget what your contract is until you finally figure out the keys to it. Okay, in my case, I know what my contract is this lifetime. Last lifetime, it was just a revenge thing. It really was. But it depends on the people you set up to connect with, as in which souls you talk to become your parents, which ones you're working with as siblings, as friends that you'll reconnect with. But it depends on the choices you make this lifetime and the opportunities you either turn down or accept that determine how the wisdom will be gained. Now, the obvious issue here, the obvious connection is when you take a look at cancer, for instance, if you decide you desire to gain the wisdom around cancer, what happens is depending on the choices you make, you either will end up developing cancer to gain wisdom of living around it, or you may have set things up so you work with people that are dealing with cancer. Okay, maybe you choose to become a doctor. Maybe you choose to become somebody that is simply a caretaker. This is where the contract gets a little variable. Now, here's the neat part about it. You make that contract with you. Okay. This is kind of like setting up major goals for yourself and going, this is the list of things I desire to acquire. If you don't complete them, okay, then this does not mean you breached your contract. If you've watched any of my other videos, okay, I talk quite frequently about the importance of a list. Okay, now I don't expect you to read this. You can see just barely, I think. You can see a little bit of writing here. The same thing applies with the soul. Okay, when you're making a contract, what you're doing ultimately is you're taking a look at yourself and going, these are the goals I have. If you get them checked off, that's great. If not, they get postponed to the next lifetime. Now, like I said, I was going to hold things back until we got to the 8:15 mark to deal with this other side of things. Now, when we start looking at the soulmate, okay, we'll start with this one. Okay, your soul starts off as an individual. Now, pardon the artwork, I'm really not good at it, okay, but that soul splits into two identical souls. These are absolutely identical yet independent. Okay, now these two right here, when that first split is where the soulmate is made. Okay, but that's where the soulmate comes from. Where did that start? We have to go right back to before the third dimension of this rendition was even built. And fascinatingly enough, that is actually covered. The whole issue of that first rendition is being covered in the Yldrbacian Chronicles in Volume 1 of the beginning years, which will come out in about 2 years. Okay, I'm in the middle of writing the Return to Paradise, which is the final book in the one trilogy I'm working on right now. But the next book coming out will be covering that whole thing of where it all began. Okay, of how the soulmates came about. But that's your first soulmate right there, is this individual. Okay, now, you take that, and where are we here? Like I said, my artwork is just absolutely pathetic. And this got a little cluttered yesterday. I should have thought about that first, but I didn't. So, you'll have to forgive me, or I hope you will anyway. Now, this is where you got your soulmate, okay? But each of these, this is the one soul splitting up. These two, again, are soulmates. But these two are soulmates to each other, not to this one. Okay. And then we have, now here's where the soulmate is. Okay. Well, this one here is being used to represent the original soul. Don't have it there. Okay. So we have our soulmate here. Now, with that in mind, okay, with that in mind, when these two split, okay, now you've got 4 souls, obviously. These two are identical, yet they're independent. But the concept of the twin flame, okay, comes this way. When you take this one here, okay, this is your soulmate, but these two over here, either one of these are twin flames. Okay, either one. They are the first break of your actual soulmate. That's your twin flame. Okay. Now, yeah, I understand where you're looking at this. Okay. I've got 2 here and I say they're both twin flames. Well, they are. But here's the funny thing. When we talk about reality is invariably built on 3s. This is why you've got the 3. These twins, they've all got to eventually get up to this soul here. Okay, they will merge to become this. So either one of these work, and then you become the soulmate. Okay, now again, when we break that down further, you'll notice that we've got now a second set here, and then I've got the next level. Well, as you can see, it's running down. I forget, somebody mentioned yesterday what this path and what this mathematical path was. But everybody in this circle, since that's your first, and since that's your soul, the primary soul, everybody in this whole circle here, okay, and down the entire span, as you can see, went from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8. Get the picture? If not, I solved that problem too. Where is that sheet of paper? Of course. Just looking for where I wrote all the numbers, and of course I get completely scrambled. Wouldn't that make sense? And I do apologize for that. There it is. This one right here. Okay. When you take the original soul, because of the fact that the soul is so powerful, okay, that it will burn out a corporeal body in a heartbeat, a physical body. Essentially, Carl, that's exactly correct. Okay. It's very much like a family tree. And this is why I decided with this particular live stream, I was going to refer to it as remembering yourself. Because you come here to find out all of this stuff and pull yourself back together. But when you go through it goes through 12 breaks. Now, I didn't write them all down, but you can do it on a calculator yourself. You come down to a total. There we go. When the soul first gets created and starts to break apart, the initial break apart results in 2048, as you just indicated there, Carl, 2048 family members, all of which have to be reunited and reconnected with. But they all have to find their own soulmates. Okay, in the process of bringing this all together. So we have now this whole thing, like I said, this whole flow here is your soul family. Okay, these are the people that are actually a part of you, which is very different from the concept, of a karmic partner. A karmic partner is literally much like you have a neighbor or a really good friend in today's world, and they have a family tree. You're not a part of their family tree, but, their soul family, but you are a member of the friendship circle. Now, I presume I've never actually done the full calculation, but where it comes to souls, according to physical world, according to the corporeal world, there's a neat little thing of 6 degrees of separation, meaning I may not know you, but you yourself, because you know other people and I know other people, between us, you go 6 connections down and we've already met. I do not know if that is the same thing with the soul family, but in all fairness, I do believe it probably is. I've just never done the calculations myself. Which is where all of that gets a little confusing on occasion. And by the way, the neat little part there is I know of one member of my soul family that I did meet this lifetime. But because of the fact that they were not ready, they had taken a very sour turn in a lot of ways. Okay, we will not be reconnecting until, like, I already know that it will be another 1,000 Terran years before I can collect that particular member of the soul family. They've got a lot of growing to do, and they will not be ready in all likelihood based on how badly damaged they currently are until that happens. Now, right now, okay, I know of one individual I know of 2 individuals that right now that I will be connecting with next lifetime. Okay. Now, this does not necessarily mean that we are going to be merging at that point, but we have already set things in motion where when this lifetime ends, we will reconnect in the next lifetime. This is part of what we call the soul contract. We're already saying things in motion, and you already are as well. Okay, you can take a look. Some people can gain access to the Akashic Records. Okay, personally, I'm one of them. But the Akashic Records track all of it, and it was set up. Picture, if you will, a massive office. What was the name of the show? There was a show not Oh God, but there was a show that revolved around somebody complaining. I forget who the actor was. Quite a famous comedian, right? But they showed in there filing cabinet after filing cabinet of everything going on, and essentially that's what it boils down to. Now, of course, if you happen to be into things like Dungeons and Dragons, which is one of my major pastimes, it could also be likened to a very large bag of holding where you just reach in and you get the information you're seeking. In all fairness, poetically, I have not actually watched the Librarians. Okay, this one, same guy that played on Ace Ventura. That's the actor that was playing it. Okay, but I haven't actually watched the Librarians. You wouldn't, really bizarre side note, but you wouldn't happen to know if that is available on Netflix, would you? If the Librarians is. But when you take a look at the Akashic Records, okay, you can find out all sorts of things, what your soul came here to do. Because most people, when they come here, forget entirely what they were, they forget entirely what their goals were when they set it up. Net result, the net result is they didn't end up remembering what they were doing. So, of course, the first number of years, you fumble around trying to figure out where you're standing. Okay, and this is why I tell people, so many are given the impression you've got to have your life sorted out in the first 20 years. Right, if you desire to be successful in life. I'm telling you that is not the case. I only finally figured out exactly what I desired to do, how I was going to go about it, etc., a whopping 2 months ago. Okay, now I'll be 59 next weekend. Well, this coming weekend. Okay, so I clearly did not have my life in order when I was 20. The Yldrbac Chronicles, I started writing when I was 15. It is now in print. This is what I mean by you have to stay focused. Okay, you've got to get a real firm grip on which direction you're going. Okay, now the nice part about it, when we're dealing with the soulmate aspect, okay, this is a person, now you may or may not meet them in the corporeal world this lifetime. There's a couple of things that we'll go over momentarily on how you can tell. Okay, on how you can tell if it's likely your soulmate. But the soulmate is the person that once you find each other, when both of your corporeal bodies pass away, when your physical body dies, that's when a soulmate will merge and become a higher entity. Okay, that's when this reverses itself. When you meet your soulmate, when both of your physical bodies have died, they merge to become one. And at that point, we are back at this neat little situation of being back at just the soul. Now, I draw it as a soul. You can draw it as anything. In all fairness, it is not round in shape. Okay, it doesn't even hold a static shape because the soul itself is so diverse that it's able to take on any shape it desires. Now, of course, let's go back a fraction here, and we'll go to where the soul itself originally came from. Now, you don't have to believe what I'm telling you. This is simply what I've come to understand. Now, if you don't have an answer, work with this one. But as I was told, it is suggested you take this one as the way it works. But keep an eye out for that one piece of information that derails the whole 9 yards. If you don't find it, carry on living your life as though this is the way it works. That's how I've managed to maintain that thing. Well, how I've managed to acquire that one goal that I honestly did not think this lifetime I would pull off. I managed to find peace of mind. I know exactly what I'm up to. I know exactly where I'm heading. Don't know how I'm getting there yet. One of my biggest holdups where it comes to getting there is the idea of, marketing and what have you in the material world. And it just dawned on me, I'm looking at the extra video over here, okay, that shows exactly what you guys are seeing. And just in case you haven't noticed it, if you're interested, I'd love you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. There's a little button down in the bottom right corner here. And I know you can't see me pointing at it, but it's a little picture of a globe. Okay, that is an instant subscription button. Absolutely, if you enjoy the video, if you enjoy the information, or if you simply want to make sure you can stay in contact with me, hit that button. Okay, the soul itself has all kinds of things to do this lifetime. Now, if you picture your soul as the driver of your car, okay, now you yourself are the backbone of the whole 9 yards in the material world, okay? But if you take a look at you as an individual, if you have a car and your car breaks down, okay, you may spend a little bit of time walking from place to place, taking a look around, finding the best deal, finding the best car dealer so that you can turn around and buy a new car. The same thing applies when we're talking about your soul. Okay, and when we're talking about how the soul switches gears and takes on a new life. Okay, and this is where you end up with your soulmate, where you end up with soul family and everybody working together. Karmic partners come in real handy if you think of finding the body in terms of talking to a friend of yours, okay, that is a good deal, is a good auto dealer, right? And you talk to them about finding your next one. Greetings, Margaret. The good news, Margaret, well, I'm glad you made it. The good news is I didn't start getting into the actual topic itself until 8:15. And I did that because so many people last night, we got talking about it last night, and basically came to the idea that waiting to get into the heart of the topics would be advisable to give you guys a chance to get into the video. Okay, so you don't come in missing the first 3/4 of it. That's why I ended up delaying it. But, there is no saying that goes better late than never. Well, I will tell you this. There are times when that does not apply. Okay, and just a minor sidetrack. We'll get back to the vehicle in a second. One of my pet peeves on this planet is the number of people that speed where they're going. Okay, and this takes into consideration the vehicle. But the way I look at it is this: if you're trying to get someplace, give yourself the time to get there. That would be the first, and that would be the priority thing. Okay. Because the way I came to understand it, I used to drive with a lead foot. I'd be in a hurry to get everywhere. Okay. I remember going through 50 zones at over 100 kilometers an hour. Okay. In other words, at about 80 miles an hour in a 30 zone. But it finally dawned on me that, look, wherever I'm heading, whether it's a city or a specific building, it's going to be there when I get there. And if it isn't there when I get there, I didn't want to get there earlier. So the idea of better late than never doesn't entirely apply all the time. Sometimes it's really good to be late. But when you go and you find yourself a new body, then you pick up the body. Okay, you get yourself a new vehicle and away you go. And just like with a pedestrian driving, when you've got a car, okay, you can go certain places. But you get out of the car, you become a pedestrian, you can go more places. Not as fast, but you can go more places. And the important factor there, okay, the really important factor at that point is you can go more places without actually having a problem. Right? But when your car breaks down, and this is where the past lives lock in, when your car breaks down, when your physical body dies, you get out, you walk around for a little while, find a new vehicle, pick up a new vehicle, and start over. But just like in the physical world that you're aware of, when you pass away, and like when your car dies, you don't forget everything in it. Okay. The answer to the question, though, why is it that so many people forget what their past lives were like? Well, the reason is that the corporeal brain, on the whole, is not designed to handle all of that information. So what happens is you get a whole pile of little cards, essentially, little markers, little subroutines saying, "Go over here to check out this." Only most people don't know how to find the tree. Okay. And this is also why I say this is all connected. Okay. The really nice part about it is that as you start to understand the connection, the soulmate, your soulmate, the twin flames. I know people that call each other twin flames, and I'm looking at them going, I can tell by looking at them they are not connected in that world. Ultimately, yes, it is. Margaret's just made a comment in the chat room here that it's like trying to be in two places at the same time. I will tell you, here's the funny thing there. Poetically is just commenting she can only relate to a lot of this with her imagination. I'm paraphrasing. Okay. But here's what most people don't realize. The key to the higher senses is your imagination. Okay. Now I'm going to show you something here that I did yesterday. Only I did it late in the game. Okay. But if you take your hands, okay, and you place them together just roughly. Oh, thank you very much, Poetically. I appreciate that. Poetically is just informing us that Poetically is actually a he. Okay, and I do appreciate that, because I'll tell you, with many of the names, you just can't tell. But if you take your hands and you put them together just like this, but you put them about a 1/4 inch apart, you'll feel something between them. Now, you may consider that your imagination. Okay, but you feel that energy. That is the auric field that some people talk about. It's what I refer to as the biomagnetic flux. Okay, and it's that energy that you utilize when you're looking at healing. It's that energy that Reiki masters use, that pranic healers use. Quite frankly, it's the same energy that masseuses use, although most masseuses don't realize they're using it. Okay, but you don't forget how to do this. What happens is that the data tree that all the information is on doesn't get transferred over to the corporeal body. And that's why people on the whole tend to forget. Now, as you get more evolved, as you get older from a soul standpoint, okay, you start to remember all these bits and pieces at the same time. Which is why when I look at this, I'm looking, let's see, we got 21 there. So I've actually got 20 past lives. Well, actually, I've got 23, but 20 that I've identified the dates on. Okay, the rough years. Okay, these are all past lives that I personally recall and I'm starting to expand on, document in another one of the many books I'm writing. Okay. In answer to that funny little question, nobody's really asking. The reason I move around as much as I do right now is I threw my back out a week ago, and it is still causing major problems, which is annoying to say the least. Especially when you think that this morning when I got up, everything was working perfectly, and then I spent too much time bent over, basically like this, working on painting the little figures I've showed you and I've showed people before. But what happens is the soul has all this extra energy. Now, some of you, if you've looked into it, may have heard people talk about them having about a human having an aura that stretches some 30 feet out, 30 feet in diameter around the body. This is pretty reasonable of an accurate outlook. Ultimately, that's exactly what we're talking about poetically. It is very similar to dealing with magnets. Okay, and if you think about the term that I use, biomagnetoelectrics, it's a combination of bioenergy, magnetic energy, and electrical energy. Okay, not to mention you'll also pick up thermals. Okay, now the intriguing part of that is I am not an engineer, but I have the schematics laid out without all the electrical stuff involved or all the mechanical stuff. But I've got the notes on a piece of equipment that is literally, it is a power generator that it literally combines wind, heat, and water. Okay, to create a massive energy surge. Okay. Now, when you look at that, this is why I talked about and why I mentioned that to people that, yeah, I do specialize in some pretty strange equipment. Fact of the matter is that the one flaw I've got, in one sense, that I'm aware of, is I never developed a real attention and real attachment to the monetary world. I don't see anything wrong with it, but given some of the items I've got sitting up here, I can explain them easily, but I have no idea how to build them and no idea where to get the information to build them. What I do know is I don't have the focus at this point to go back to school to learn Terran technology to figure it out. Okay. And of course, many people will look at that and go, well, why not look into patenting the idea? Well, it has to do with the fact that I don't know how to do that one either. Okay. But the soul itself, now, given that I've got just on this lifetime, on this planet, I've got memories literally of Earth being built. Okay. And yes, Earth was built, but it was built in such a way that human understanding, human technology and comprehension does not understand the way that the building took place. And therefore, we go in with this idea of creation. And it was created. But think of it. If you take Lego blocks, and you put them together piece at a time, and you build yourself a house out of Lego, and I'm sure everybody here knows what Lego is. Some of you may remember something, an older toy called Lincoln Logs. Or Meccano. It's the same idea. You take bits and pieces, you put them together, and you have created that item. Okay. Creation does not have to be a case of done. Okay. Except in the way of sound. That kind of works really well. Okay. The neat part about all of this, from my standpoint, is quite literally, the more I know, the less I know. Okay. But the way that works is as you learn, as you remember more, what you'll find is that there is so much more out there that comparatively you remember a lot less. Yeah, poetically mistaken goes, Lego. It's a torture device for children against their parents' bare feet. I got news for you. If you think that one's a torture device, you should try the other device that we've got. Now that hurt a lot. Shouldn't have done that. But I'm going to show you something here. Okay, with the Yldrbac Chronicles I was talking about, because it is built by a gamer, it's written by a gamer, that would be me, for gamers. This is one of the boxes, one of the dice boxes that actually is tied to that. But the reason I dug this out is this. Ties directly to the whole idea. Jacks are another painful one. And here's one that hurts like you would not believe. But this is a gamer's dice. Okay. Picture that. Okay, now that, and some of these are pointed. This is a 4-sided dice that gamers, people who play Dungeons and Dragons and many of the other tabletop role-playing games, okay, you step on one of these, you'll know it. You know, you take a look at that. Now, picture that's got a solid point, and I've got something to do. But this is why we try and tell people, clear the clutter off the floor, and that applies to kids, adults, it doesn't matter. Okay. See this neat little box here? It contains all of these. I had them specifically built. The dice are built by other people, but I had a master woodworker specifically build these boxes for me. Okay. Just one of those neat little things. But let's face it, there's a lot of things you can put on the floor that hurt like the dickens. Not the least of which is if you take a look at the spike bands that the police use to stop a speeder. But got kind of sidetracked there a little, but hey, what the heck? When we're dealing with the soul's purpose, your whole soul's purpose, is to remember yourself. To go out and find yourself and figure out which direction you're going. Okay. Now I'm going to have to do this before it gets way carried away. I just have, yes, I'm still here. The problem is I've got an interesting problem going on up front. And I just don't feel like putting it on hold to deal with it. Where are we here? Go there. These things are debatably the bane of society in a lot of ways. But we'll deal with it, and then we'll get back to things. But this is what I mean by this is a live feed. I have to deal with certain things that I just don't get options on. So we take a look at that, and we do this, and we just send a message to our son up front. Hopefully he'll get this message, but who knows? This is one of those odd things that just goes completely sideways for me. Hopefully he'll get this, but I'm not betting on it. And if it gets much worse, what it is his volume is getting way out of hand. Oddly enough, you're pretty much right, Margaret. But the trick with that is, and there is a way to do that. So let's cover that for you right away. Because this is one of those things that will help with remembering you. Okay. As long as you can get your feet on the floor or your hand on a piece on a wall or a heavy table, something that normally sits on the floor, you'll be fine. If you can't find a place, if there's too much clutter on the floor, the obvious answer, as you well know, is get it cleaned up. But failing that, if you take your hand, okay, let's say this is a wall. You put your hand on a wall on a heavy piece of object, like a recliner chair, a dining room table, whatever. Something that normally sits on the floor. You put your hand against it and you visualize the excess energy coming out of the palm of your hand and into the object. Okay, now it was brought to my attention yesterday that one of the biggest issues they run into is they don't want to spew all this negative garbage out for Esau, Mother Earth, Gaia, to sort out. The thing is that if you think about it, okay, if you let that excess energy go, you will find you ground quite nicely. Now, most of you have heard about this idea of surrounding yourself with a bubble of white light. The reason for that is when you take a look at the field around your body, and if you take a look at my hand, you may well see it, or take a look at your own hand. But around the outside, kind of looking like a glove, is a second image. That is the auric field pointing out around and sticking out beyond the physical body. And by letting that excess energy go, you'll slow things down, you'll start to feel more grounded, more centered, and thereby more clear, you'll feel clearer about what you're aiming for. Okay. The nice little part of it, from your standpoint, is it is doable, but I absolutely agree with you. If you got too much junk on the floor, there is going to be a problem trying to stay focused. But this comes back to that aspect of the material world is a reflection of the way your mind is operating. Which, by the way, in case you couldn't tell, if you've looked at any of my older videos, you'll know that all of these shelves used to be wall-to-wall stuff, right top to bottom. Okay, but by clearing the junk out of the way, you'll find your mind works a lot more clearly. The reason is the physical body, or the physical room you're in, your primary living area, or your primary working area, are a direct reflection of the way your mind is working. Now, conversely, if those areas are cluttered, they are going to have a direct impact. Absolutely, Margaret. The state of your home, okay, the state of the building you're working in, will have a direct impact on the clarity of your mind. Okay. Now, Margaret's just mentioned that she finds dark rocks help with absorbing the excess energy. Okay. And it actually works like an absolute charm. Two of the best rocks I've come across, hematite is a fantastic one for helping ground, for helping pull it together. Okay. Granite, actually, amazingly enough, is one of the ones that I find works extremely well for pulling things together. Okay, I find that granite and, quite frankly, oak, as in the wood, work beautifully for me to bring things into a balance point. Okay, don't think you can see it. No, you can't see it here. Well, you sort of can, I think. Yeah, you'll notice there's a pole over in that corner there. Way back over, right beside the door. That is a type of bamboo called rattan. Okay, and that too works really well for grounding, for helping with the growth. Okay, but the solid, the darker colored, even if you prefer something like, for instance, ouch, that hurt. For instance, there's another stone, it's reddish in color, called feldspar, that works beautifully for grounding as well. But the dark colors, much like dark colors, seem to absorb light or seem to pull the heat towards you. The darker colored stones also help pull the negative energy out of you. And this is why I say you have to have part of all things. Yes, naturally magnetic lodestone, poetically mistaken. Naturally magnetic lodestone helps immensely in stabilizing energy fields. Okay, and can absolutely bleed off the negative by simple elimination. That in and of itself will help bring your own energy levels up, and your own sense of stability and grounding. It will bring it to a nice balance point. This is again one of those things why I say it's all connected. Okay, if we go back 400 years, back to when the witch hunts were taking place. Okay, sad to say, a lot of the friends I have this lifetime, I actually burned at the stake in that one. I wasn't always a decent person. I question whether I am now, but you get to figure that out. Came to the conclusion I don't have to see myself as a really decent individual. I just have to learn to accept me as me. And that applies to you as well. Everybody has a darker past. Everybody has gone through their own things this lifetime and prior ones. Okay, there's very few people that I've run into that are actually first time visitors to Earth. That is absolutely correct. Although I do personally, Margaret just says you got it for balance, you have to walk both sides. And that is correct. I just prefer to spend most of my time now on the positive side of it. My last lifetime, it didn't matter who you were. Okay, if you didn't agree with me in my last lifetime, I actually grew up in Chicago I was in the First World War, so I'd been born about 1900 because I went to the First World War at 16, but at 14 I already had a record for violent offenses by the time I was 14. We're talking last lifetime. This lifetime, I've never even gotten so much as a traffic ticket. Okay, I've had traffic warnings, but I've not gotten so much as a single traffic ticket, which is really amazing when you think there was one period where I went through a tiny little town. Speed limit was 50 kilometers, so about 30 miles an hour. I shot through that town at just shy of 120 kilometers an hour. In other words, about 80 miles an hour. Actually, I think closer to 90. And I walked out of that with a warning, with a verbal warning. Okay. Absolutely, Margaret. See, the neat part about it is when we get people, Margaret has just said victory to the light. Absolutely. The darkness is required because if there is no darkness, you will not recognize light. This is why all of it, positive, negative, and neutral, were all created. Okay, because you cannot have free will if you do not have something to choose. If you don't have the opportunity of doing something negative, you cannot choose to do something positive. Okay, and the soul comes back here. The whole purpose of the soul was simple. Okay, from an individual soul standpoint, it is to experience everything, to experience the third dimension with limited senses, okay, and with limited power over it, whereby you had to come to terms with where your limitations were, but not get buried by them. Okay, sadly, many of the people in today's world that have moved into positions of power, whether we are talking spiritual power or political or legal, many of those people have forgotten more about where they should be standing, what they came here to do, than you have. Okay, this does not mean you should look down on them. I only look down on two types of people. I'm only 5'8", so it's really not that big of a jump, right? But I only look down on two types of people. And I don't care what their gender or anything else. I look down on people that are shorter than me, and I look down on people that are either laying down or at a position lower down than me, as in physically at the bottom of the stairs sort of thing. Those are the only types of people I look down on. Conversely, the only people I look up to are the ones that are physically in a physical position higher than me, or they're taller than me in the first place. Then I will look up to them. Do I admire people that are in a better position than I am? Certainly. But this is the difference between envy and jealousy. Jealousy is a very violent energy. It's a very negative one. And the soul can generate a staggering amount of it. Okay. But the soul also has an equal capacity to generate a staggering amount of positive energy. Okay, but it's up to the individual to choose where you're going to focus. It's up to you as individuals to decide, are you going to move forward in a positive fashion, or are you going to focus on the things that you've gone through in the past? Okay, now the neat part is, I was going to mention this before, where it came to the soul, that's the primary purpose. Okay, but how do you find a soulmate, or how do you know it's a soulmate? Your soulmate, more often than not, has a very similar life path to you. They've gone through their own trials and tribulations. Okay, but they have usually they have a very similar outlook to you, or a diametrically opposed one. I know of a couple of people where what they say about their partner is they are absolutely diametrically opposed, as in they do not look at the world in the same way, and yet they click. And the reason that happens is when you're dealing with soulmates, you literally complete each other. Okay. Not exactly. It's part of what you would call group incarnation. Okay, Margaret, this is what I'm referring to. When the soul first comes in, okay, it splits. These first two splits are the soulmate. Okay, but they continue splitting down into bits and pieces below them. And eventually, as you see here, okay, it's gone to 2, to 4, to 8. Okay, ultimately, when the soul first arrives, because the soul has to, it's got too much energy to fit inside a corporeal body. So initially, when it first starts, okay, it breaks down into, where are we here? There we go, into a total of 2,048 independent yet identical parts. What you're calling a group incarnation. That's the 2,048. Now it breaks down more individually. Okay. And breaks down more individually as you go along. Okay. But here's the funny thing. Now, some of you are Christian. You're following that whole doctrine. Now, here's the thing. Okay. We take a look at this break. Okay. What ends up happening is, in this world, it breaks into 20 to 12 to start with. Okay, in this incarnation of reality, the soul and the original soul, what you may consider God, you may consider it source, universe, call it what you will, the name doesn't matter. Okay, and the reason I say that is I learned from a very, very intelligent individual centuries ago, by the name of William Shakespeare, that made the comment that a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. No need to apologize. I wish I had paid medication. My back is killing me tonight, Margaret. But a soulmate is actually the beginning of the group incarnation. If we take a look at this, no, not that one. If we take a look at this being the primary soul, okay, this first split is the soulmate, and that takes place right here. When you first create that first split, that's your soulmate. This whole thing leading up to that 2048, okay, this is your group incarnation, but the first split is right there. That's your soulmate. And these have to collect themselves together in order for you to remember you. In order for you to remember yourself. the complete package of all that you are able to become. And rest assured, when we talk about all you're able to become, there is absolutely nothing you cannot accomplish. Okay, if you take a look at the root soul, you'll find that it works out kind of well. Ultimately, Margaret, yes, it is, and in all fairness, it works kind of the same way. Okay, but what it did was it scattered the pennies all over the ground, and now you have to pick them up and pair them up. And every time you pair them up, it's also kind of like that neat little game, and I forget what it was called. We used to play it as kids. Take all the cards and flip them upside down. Now you try and match them. That's what the soulmate is doing, going around looking at all the different cards, looking for its match. And of course, once those two souls merge, they gain all of that wisdom, all of that knowledge, all at once. And now they're prepared to move on to the next step. Okay. Possibly. Hey, JCL, how you doing? Glad you could join us. A lot of the time, I don't know if it was concentration, in all fairness, but again, there's probably a number of different names for it. Okay, so what you've got when you're looking at the soul, at the soulmate issue, there is only one soulmate, only one. Okay, you'll have two twin flames. Which, yes, I realize that means there's actually three of them. The thing is, whichever one you pick, the other one will be picked up by another part of your soul family. And eventually you'll all be pulled together. Okay. But it really boils down to the soulmate, you only have one. So many people I talk to, they're looking to find their soulmate for this lifetime. That is not what they're actually seeking, but that is what they've been told they're seeking. No, poetically, that's just a nasty, annoying game. I'm sure of it. She writes down 52 card pickup. Now I work with tarot, so you get 78. But no, the neat part about it is that the soulmate, you only have one, but it's an issue that doesn't happen very often on Earth. Yeah, I know it's bad for me, but what the heck? I was told a number of years ago I'm diabetic, so I don't drink a lot of this stuff. I drink a lot more coffee. Of course, the neat part for me was the doctors came out and said, "Oh, you're diabetic," and I went, "Yeah." And then 2 months later, they went, "We don't understand you. You're not diabetic." I'm absolutely certain they went to an interesting school on the whole. I don't have a lot of luck with doctors. On the other hand, I have been told some of the things I got told as I went along, right? Because I wake up remembering various different things. Okay. A buddy of mine told me when I remembered my life from 1828, I lived in Northern Ireland. And I was talking to a friend of mine about it because I remembered living in a blue slate house. I looked at him and I said, I don't think they painted them back then. And he bust out laughing. He looks at me, he goes, I hate you. Because I've studied history my entire life. And you go to bed, you wake up in the morning remembering chunks of it. Right. Because what had happened was I remembered a past life where, yes, I was a fisherman, but it was right at the time of the potato famine, way back in the early 1800s. Okay. The blue house is because apparently slate stone, which is what our house was made out of, turns blue in the Atlantic mist, in the salt water off the North Atlantic. Right. So, I mean, and again, this is just one of those lifetimes I recall. And one day, where it comes to that one day after I could travel again, which Lord knows when or if that'll be. One day I'll make it to Chicago, which is where my last lifetime was, and northwest of Dublin, which is where my lifetime in 1828 was. I appreciate that, Margaret. Margaret's just clarifying it's an oxidation process. I'm presuming poetically mistaken that this indicates that you're down in Mexico. I can tell you we still have glass bottles up here. Okay. They're not as common as they once were, and they certainly don't sell as often. But we still have them up here. That's what's called a complete sidetrack, and I don't mind it at all. Again, when we're looking at soulmates, I know people that call themselves twin flames, and they are far more likely to be karmic partners. Okay, which we were talking about earlier. Oh, okay. Me personally, I'm up in Kelowna, BC, Canada. Okay. I've been asked a number of times, am I ever going to come down into the States to one of the UFO conferences? And the trick there is when it's an option to travel again, I will be coming down. The problem is I won't be getting a vaccine to do it unless it becomes legally mandatory. Okay. That's the biggest reason there. Okay. Will I eventually come down? Absolutely. But I have no idea. That's the one thing I've had a hard time trying to figure out, because governments keep doing absolutely bizarre things. But that being said, it's an open invitation for you. If you're ever up in Kelowna and you can get a hold of me, for pity's sakes, let me know that you're text me ahead of time. Let me know who you are, where we connected. I'm quite willing to go for coffee with people, to meet people. Okay, I just don't travel a whole lot right now. Part of that is because, well, let's face it, COVID played havoc. The other part of it is I don't travel well to start with. One thing that you'll find, and this is something very important if you're working at enhancing your own energy levels. Okay, as you work with this, when you pull your hands apart, you keep one word running in your head: heal. As that gets stronger, your ability to sense what's going on, and I do mean not only the emotions of other people, but I'm also referring to the spirits that have passed on, what most people refer to as medium work. Your ability to sense these things will be stronger, but your effect on electronics may also, and I did say may also, become a little bit more prolific. In my case, when I get edgy, computers have problems. I'm amazed this computer actually works. Okay. One thing I did find is if you've got crystals, especially if you've got quartz crystal, it is usually a bad idea to put it anywhere near the computer, because quartz crystal is an amplifier. Okay. Now, rose quartz you don't have a problem with. Smoky won't be too much trouble. But clear quartz is where your problem comes in. Okay. But you'll find that your ability to affect things can be extreme and can go to extreme levels. Okay. See, from my standpoint, it boils down to this. A friend of mine coined a really neat phrase one day, and he goes, "To know oneself is to know all." Meaning, as you get to remember who you are and what you're actually capable of, you will be able to much more readily deal with the rest of the world. Okay. One thing that I ran into a gentleman that had a severe stroke. Well, basically the same damage that was done to mine. Okay. Where I went into the hospital, I couldn't walk, I couldn't speak when I went into the hospital. But this gentleman in particular had a stroke 2 years earlier than me. And what he told us was this. He reached a point after 5 years fighting with it. Right. That dark inclusion, Margaret, may well be what's protecting your computer. Okay. When you're looking at that dark inclusion, it may well be what's holding the energy at bay. Okay. I still wouldn't recommend setting it right beside the computer, right on the computer. But if it's working, don't worry about it. But no, this one individual, he had a stroke a couple of years ago, and he got to the point just recently. He goes, I've reached a point where I've accepted the fact this is as far as I'm going to heal. Now, that is, in my opinion, a major miscalculation. See, when I had my stroke, I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, and my left hand was totally shut down. However, by working with it, I'm rewriting the whole nervous network so I can actually write again. Now, the thing is, before my stroke, I used to be able to write better with my left hand than I do with my right. Okay, after the stroke, I couldn't handle the thing, and I still haven't been able to get my writing up. That doesn't mean I've given up on it. So what you look at, whatever you're aiming at doing, and here's the other thing. And I do this issue with the energy work daily. Quite frankly, I do it way more than daily. But a year ago, I told myself I was going to drop my weight. At the beginning of this year, and I'd have to go check for exact amounts, but at the beginning of this year, I made a very definitive decision. I think I was just about 230, but I made a definitive goal. I am going to break the 200-pound mark by the end of this year. Well, I am very happy to say that right now, as of this morning, I was down to 203 pounds. That gives me 7 months, if you include the entirety of this one. That gives me 7 months, 8 months, I guess, to drop 3 pounds. I'm pretty certain I can pull it off. Oh, calling it quit. The difference, Margaret's just asked, what would the difference be between giving up and calling it quits? Calling it quits is what artists and writers do. And what I mean by that is you start working on a project and you get to a certain point and you go, it's not finished, but I've got other things that have to take priority right now. So I'm going to quit working on this and go on to something else. Okay, many people have projects that they would like to attain when they're kids. And because life gets complicated, they walk away from them. They put them on hold. But when you give up, that's when you look at it and go, I will never finish. I will never get any better. You quit making the effort. Okay. For instance, an obvious example, when I was in high school, and one of these days I should probably go find it. One of these days I turned around and one day I'll go back and finish it. But back when I was in high school, actually, it was right after I got out of high school, I started reading an old book called Shogun. Now, I quit reading it for a number of reasons, but now I don't know where it is. And I do know when I get back, when I do find a copy of it again, that I will turn around and I'll pick it up where I left off, which was page 177. Don't ask me how I remember the exact page number. Okay, I just know one day I will eventually find it again and I'll finish reading it. Okay. And yeah, poetically mistaken, it says, I enjoy the phrase tactical retreat. I'm a very firm supporter of many of the people that join the military, join the police, join the first responders in order to protect their family, their friends, their neighborhood, or their country, whatever. Very strong supporter of that. What I'm not an overly strong supporter of is many of the decisions that the people in the upper echelons are making. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. If I were perfect, I would not be in the mess I'm in right now. Essentially, Margaret, you're right. What Margaret has said is, so if I understand, calling it quits allows for further forward motion if in another direction. If you call it quits, you're still able to move forward. Okay. If you give up, you're not going that direction at all. You just say that can never be done. Okay. This is why I tell people that have tried converting me to another belief structure. And I get it from religious people all the time, where they try and convert me, and I just tell them, give up. It ain't going to happen. Okay. There are so many people that have tried convincing me that I should follow one specific religious path. I'm looking at them going, no, not going to happen. But I am going to open a can of worms. I'll open it here just because. Like I said, every soul comes to this world to do to do some sort of a task, to gain some sort of a wisdom. One of the primary goals I came to this world for was to remind everyone in existence that working together, we can make this a better world. Okay, now it won't be better for everybody. Some people will complain, but the can of worms I'm going to open up, I'll be opening up on not live. I'll be opening it up at this point on my vlog tomorrow. Okay. Yes, very much. When you call it quit, when you stop working on something, what you're doing is taking a step back long enough to get your bearings, refocus your direction, and thereby carry on. Now, many painters will stop painting. The saying in the art field is artwork is never finished. The artwork is never finished. People just stop working on it. Now JCL. JCL, where it comes to completing your task, I'm hoping, and I'll drop this in your lap, and I'll drop it in everybody's lap. If you're having trouble, I don't care it doesn't matter to me what the task is that you're aiming at. But if you're having trouble striving to figure out what the next step is, that's what I've been doing for people for the last, publicly for the last 48 years, almost 49. Okay. Drop me a line and we'll make sure you're in the right track. Okay. It's actually very easy to get on the path that you belong on if you know the goal you're here to do. Now, many people still have troubles with that, but that's because the soul does not pass on all the information. Okay, the amount of information your soul has as compared to what the physical body can handle are two very different things. Okay. But is it possible to attain just about every goal? Pretty much. Now, I will tell you where your biggest problem comes in. Where you're sometimes what you run into is an interesting situation of how do I get from where I am to where I desire to be? Well, the trick is to realize that you didn't make a mistake. You may have done things. See, mistakes are quite common, right? A stupid maneuver is when you know better and do it anyway. Okay, that's where it becomes really complicated, is if you know better and you do it anyway. And it's like I tell people, I get asked, well, how did you deal with this situation? I will tell you, my methods of dealing with situations are not often politically correct. Okay, I do not understand why my bosses in the past have not fired me. Okay, but I literally remember working in a restaurant one day. Quite frankly, I worked in restaurants for 24 years. But I remember specifically telling the owner of the store I was working in, and at the time also my boss, I remember very distinctly telling him to get out of my kitchen or I was going to shut the kitchen down, right? Because he was being a pain in the neck. Well, he looked at me and he goes, who do you think you are? Who do you think I am? I says, you're my boss. What's your point? Now, why he didn't fire me and why he walked out of the kitchen, I don't know. Okay, but I do recommend you don't do that to your boss. The odds are you'll get fired. But if you've got a goal in mind or if you've got a task in mind, the first thing that I have found with people, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, Margaret, poetically mistaken, is just saying that's the difference between negligence and ignorance. And Margaret is saying Cook's Kingdom, which is very much the case. I ask people, apparently when I walk into a place, I walk in as though I belong there. I don't know why. I mean, from my standpoint, I feel like I belong many places. But what I have found is if you've got a goal in mind, the first place that you look at is, like I've said in many of my videos, take a look at where your thinking is done, where you do all of your work on your finances and what have you. Clear that area up first. That will help your brain work faster. You don't have to take my word for it. Okay. But once you get that cleared up, now you're in a position to start eliminating everything that is hindering your attaining the goal you're aiming at. Like in your case, the reality is here, JCL, in your case, you've got a task in mind. One suggestion would be take a look at that overall task and ask yourself one little detail. The stuff that is around me, is that helping my goal? Is that helping me attain my goal? Or is it creating a problem? Okay, that's the thing you focus on. You redirect the energy so that the energy that's working in your home is not creating a barrier for your progress. All in all, if you do that, you'll find you actually make much better headway in attaining your goals and in completing your tasks. An obvious issue, and I covered it in this one. In this one, I cover the backbone of how that all works. Okay. But it boils down to this. You take a sheet of paper, and I've mentioned this to everybody before. And this, by the way, applies to the soul as well. Okay. You break your task down into 15-minute to half-hour jobs where possible. Where it comes to the soul, don't aim for 15-minute to half-hour, because I'll tell you, in my case, my soul is way older than the beginning of Earth. I saw Earth created. Okay, I saw it get built. And quite frankly, I talked to the people that were building it. But again, this is one of those lifetimes that was prior to my becoming a part of Earth. Okay, but when you start eliminating, you start modifying the energy flow, so the things that you're working towards, that primary task that you've got in mind, can be accomplished. The obvious example, a real simple one, is if you're trying to clean a living room, okay, and you figure it'll take you 2 hours to do it top to bottom. Break that job into 15-minute to half-hour marks. Okay, that way, as you get them done, you can check them off. And if you get pulled away, you've already got those goals in place. You've already got some of the things pulled and completed. Let's say you only get the 50 and get one of the tasks, like your day, like your coffee table, completely cleared. When you come back, you don't have to clear it again. So now you only have to find an hour and 45 minutes. Okay, a lot easier to find. But every time you do that, you complete one task, you check it off, and you move on to the next. Now, the same thing applies with the soul, but the soul is a lot older. Okay, and rest assured, People's past lives are not spent only on Earth. Okay, the 20 I've documented are simply the 20 from Earth, and not even all of them. Although, intriguingly enough, when I started writing the Yldrbac Chronicles, many of the lifetimes I had are reflected in those. Because the reality behind it is that when I wrote those, every one of the, almost every one of the experiences are ones that I personally went through. Of course, with the 3 I'm writing right now, since it hasn't happened yet, let's pray I don't go through it. Okay, because it's post-apocalyptic. My goal right now is to help people realize that, yes, mankind is going down a very dark path right now, but the souls of each and every one of us have the capacity to alter that path. We have the capacity to help influence the other people around you. You know, when people start talking about the elite being the people responsible, I used to believe that to a degree myself until Facebook hit. Now what I find out is so many souls are off track. Okay, that what has to happen is we've got to start pointing the right direction out, and not just saying this is what you should be doing, but leading by example. And this is why I say the tools I offer, the philosophies of life that I live by, are the ones that those are the ones I'm sharing. Those are the ones that I know from personal experience are working. Okay. But it's up to you now what you've gone through prior to being here. Nobody can change. You cannot go back in time and alter what's already happened. You can, however, look back and see what decisions you made and what the outcome was, and make a more educated decision and to attain a better outcome. But that is up to you. You know, the reality is, doesn't matter how good the tools are that you're offered. Doesn't matter how good they are. The reality is, if you don't pick them up and use them, you're not going to make much headway with them. The best carpenter tools in the world are 100% useless if a carpenter doesn't pick them up. You know, taking a look at that when you look at your soul and you look at what you desire to do. Now, people kept telling me you need to have your life in order when you're young. Well, I'm a week before turning 59. I finally know what I'm aiming at. Okay, I know the path I'm going down. And in a nutshell, it boils down to making sure that these videos get a little bit more consistent, a little bit more organized, if you will. Okay, and this one is this series is remembering yourself. The idea is, because I've been through a lot of this, showing you what I did to bring myself into balance, to get rid of that stress I was dealing with. Yeah, and that's absolutely right. You know, the funny thing there, Margaret just typed in here, learn from the past or repeat it. Well, here's the funny part. The saying goes, those that don't know history are doomed to repeat it, which is very true. But what they don't tell you is those that dwell on history have exactly the same problem. Okay, people have a tendency of looking at it going, this always happens to me, and they focus on that, and net result, they end up with a repeat performance. Or they draw people to them that will continue treating them in the same fashion. Now, I strongly recommend you don't let people near you that are making you feel or encouraging you to feel as though you're less of an individual. To that end, and I've shown many people on the past videos this. Okay, this funny little thing. Handmade, this is burnt with a magnifying lens. Okay. So I ended up, now I've got that sign sitting right here beside me. I've got one on my fridge door. and I've got one on my front door. Okay, the important factor is the more you believe those 4 words, the better off, the more secure your sense of self is going to become. Okay. I'm going to just correct that a little, Margaret. Universal statements don't turn you into a victim. What they do is they encourage you to focus on it and let yourself become that victim. And Lord knows I've walked down that path myself multiple times. It wasn't until I finally figured out that I don't have to fit in with the people on this planet. I have to come to accept me. You have to come to accept you as is. If you're not content with something you're doing, then you've got an obligation to yourself to talk to people. To talk to people. You're more than welcome, Margaret. You have an obligation to yourself, to your soul path, however you want to phrase it, to talk to other people that have successfully done whatever you're working on. In my case, I have successfully gone from a self-esteem that was so low I would not talk to people in my own family to the point that here I am. I used to have so little opinion of my own ability to handle things. I let so-called professionals guide me into bankruptcy twice. Now I'm above board. I'm solvent. I'm getting stronger at it. The problem is, if you continue looking in the mirror going, I cannot do this, then, whether you say you cannot do it or you say you can, either way, inevitably you will be right. And for me, it boiled down to an issue of, I will be continuing with these videos for the foreseeable future. I will be getting stronger at them as in getting more fluid with them. I will be continuing that. The 4 areas, and this is where it's all where things have finally separated a little. On odd days here, I will be dealing with, and this is something, by the way, I've actually been doing. I was told the other day quite emphatically that this is the task I'm here to do, is to find the people that are ready to heal and turn the light on for them. Regardless of the walk of life, regardless of where you are, doesn't matter what your income. I've guided people that are multi-millionaires, that have very, very active businesses. I've turned around and pointed them in a new direction to make it work more effectively. And then, of course, there's the people that look at it and go, well, if you know all of this, why is your life only just now getting started? Well, that's easy. Professional procrastinator. That when I actually did it took me about 3 months. It took me 1 summer. JCL was asking how long it took me to burn that sign. This little sign, this one here. This little sign took me about 3 months to burn. Of course, understand I could only burn it during clear, cloudless days where I actually had sunlight to work with, which is why it took me the whole summer. But if you take a look at even on the letters, right? Nightmare, absolutely not. Nightmare said, I'm sure it's a law to gain benefit from your gift. It's not a law to, but, well, I guess technically it is. From a legal standpoint, no. But karmic law does say energy out, energy in. Meaning, if you put effort into something, make sure you're getting something of reasonable value back. But with that in mind, and I mentioned this early on today, I got a very strong message from my own soul. From what you may call your higher self. I'm sitting here watching the the prices rise and watching inflation climb at a staggering level. Okay, I'm watching people up their prices. Well, bearing in mind that I've got 48 years experience. Sorry, 48 years experience. Yeah, almost 58. But publicly, I've got 45 where I've been generating an income. I was up until the end of April 30th of this year, just last week. I was charging $180 an hour for my consulting services. As of April 1st, I literally shared them in half, and I cut that fee down to 90. Now, do I still feel that I'm worth that much or that I'm worth more? Certainly. I'm one of the few consultants that can legitimately tell you, in my field, I have literally been paid $2,500 an hour for what I know. Okay, and for what I've been able to replicate for people. But all I do, in all fairness, is point out where the hiccups are, and the individual gets to do the work. But it's like I heard one person say, right? They get paid. The information they've got is real. Is simple. The longer version was a consultant went into a place, and he walked in, and he was asked what the problem was. There was a machine that was having trouble, and he walks in, and he flicks a switch, and the guy goes, and then he hands him a bill. And the guy goes, "You're charging me $1,500 to come in and flick a switch?" And the guy goes, "No." And so of course the owner goes, "I want an itemized list." So what he did was he says, "Flicking switch, $10. Knowing which switch to flick, $1,490. Right. That's the situation that I'm sitting in. I know which switches have to be flipped. For me, I've been here long enough. I know what my soul's path is. Okay, I'm here, and I've been here before. This is not my first run at this in particular challenge, but I'm here to literally remind people that working together, we can make this. Yeah, very much. That we can make this a better world, but it's going to take the effort of all of us, or at least of most of us. Okay. Yeah, Margaret. Margaret's has written here, idiot error. And the neat part about it is there is another one that I heard from computer programmers or computer troubleshooters, right? And a very common problem they have with computers, they call PEPCAC. Problem exists between chair and computer. Right. And rest assured, in my case, the fact the computer's working at all is a bonus. But I came back for this purpose. Now, where it comes to your soul and your soulmate, okay, your soul knows what you're here for. Can you talk to people that can tap into your soul and find out? The answer is yes. But I will caution you on one little detail. And that is that it's not a question whether they're right or wrong. But when you get the message directly yourself, it is so much more effective. Okay. The real kicker with this world is this whole world, your whole existence is built on freedom of choice. Now, understand this world was designed, this world was literally designed for spirits to come to this world and manifest take on a physical form, whereby they can experience the third dimensional world with minimal senses. Okay, but it was designed to share as a family. But here's where the family comes in. The family is identified as two people, any gender, any race, living under one roof, guiding as many children or as many other entities as they desire. You have a good one, Margaret. Thanks so much for joining us. That is the definition of family. Okay, as it was set up for life on Earth. But this is something that has been so badly skewed that people have forgotten much of it. Okay, many people have gotten really sidetracked. One of the things that I will tell you, technology is a wonderful tool, but it has drawn away from the soul's capacity to maneuver. Okay, because people have had to lower their vibratory rate so far to deal with the material world that many times they're not aware that they can still deal with the spiritual world. Now, when we were talking earlier, okay, and we talked about putting your hands together to feel that energy. Now, as it gets stronger, separate your hands a little further. Still feel for that energy flow. Now, you can do that as wide as you can possibly get, but you always concentrate on one word: heal. That will accelerate your own healing rate. Okay, we'll put things back in perspective for you. Now, I can no longer reach as far as I can feel the energy field. Because, well, at 5'10", that means I've got about 5'6" to still be able to tilt my wrists so they will point at each other. But I can feel energy literally on the other side of the planet. Okay. In all fairness, I can feel it on the other side of the universe. But I've been at this a long time. Okay. Can I prove what I just said? Not a snowball's prayer. Okay. Modern science and technology does not exist at this stage to be able to prove it. Of course, quite frankly, we can't get to the other side of the universe without the assistance of off-worlders at this point anyway, unless you know how to astral travel. That is a way of your soul basically getting out of your body and taking off. The catch to it is this: when you first start astral traveling, you've got to leave an umbilical cord there in order to maintain until you remember where you are. First time I did it, I don't travel with an umbilical cord. Of course, the reality is the day I learned to travel, I didn't want to be here, so I didn't bother with the cord. I just booked and then promptly got sent back. But my task at this point, I'll be continuing this because here's the way this works in the long run. Okay. I will be continuing this whole live stream, remembering yourself. Okay, I will be dealing with the journey with that particular venue. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to be starting a new one that will be taking place on Mondays, which is going to focus strictly on global unity. And I'm certain I'm going to end up upsetting some people. I'm probably going to upset a lot of people. But I've never been known for being politically correct. And there are some things that just cannot be said politely. They can be said politely, but they can't be said in a way that everybody's going to like it. Okay. Another one of the goals I will finish is this series here, the Believe In series. There are 10 other booklets this size that I'm working on. Okay, from 10 different fields. All of those will be finished. And where'd it go? This one, at least one other volume of it. And of course, this series here, which has 2 right now, but these 2, there are 10 others that are going to be coming out over the years with these, as well as far as I'm aware so far, there are 2 more, there are 2 more extra books. There are sub-stories in this group. These are some of the goals that I will be getting done. Okay. But it's an issue of making absolutely certain that you take the time to really get focused on what's working for you. Is the energy working in the right direction? Oh, perfect. Glad to hear that, JC and JCL. People have asked me multiple times about this particular path or this particular method. How do you clear the negative energy out of your life? Okay. Well, the best physical energy cleanser I've come across this lifetime is you take your bathtub, fill it with as warm a water as you can comfortably soak in. You throw in only 4 teaspoons of baking soda and 4 teaspoons of salt. Sea salt is best, but table salt works perfectly. Okay, what you don't use is you never put Epsom salt or any bubble bath, no extra oils, just 4 teaspoons of baking soda and 4 teaspoons of salt in as hot a water as you can comfortably sit in. You soak in it for 20 minutes to half an hour. That is the best physical energy cleanser I've come across this lifetime. Okay. Now, there are quicker ways. If you know how to manipulate energy, which most people, frankly, are a little lax in, can't blame me, you haven't been taught. I cannot effectively claim to be a Reiki master. I've never been taught Reiki. But I do know that I have Reiki masters that come to me because of the fact I heal things faster than they do. Okay. This is all a question of tapping in and getting to understand who you are and what you're capable of. Okay. And literally, I have yet to find anything that cannot be done. Well, that's not true. There are some. For instance, you can hope that you sprout wings anytime you like, and you can concentrate on all you'd like to. The odds are it ain't going to help a lot. Okay, but I will tell you, everything that I personally do, you can do, and more. Okay, this is why I offer tools that I personally have used, that I personally use to this day, is because whether you believe you can do something or you believe you can't, ultimately you will be correct. Okay, and something to keep in mind on that note. Okay, I've got a subset of videos on my channel called Language. Okay, that I strongly recommend you go and look up. Okay, I don't have it complete yet. There will be 12 in all. Right now, I've only got 4 there. Okay, but the big one would be can't. There are 3 others, and I forget exactly which ones. But if you look up the subset in my channel called Language, you'll find them. Now, I was going to mention something here. I just got to find the list so I do it right. Some of the other topics I will be dealing with over the next little while, and I'll be dealing with each of these on one a week. Okay, I don't know which order they're all going to come up in, but next week, both Saturday and Sunday, I will be discussing life on Atlantis. Okay, now do understand I've never read up on it. I have stumbled across a couple of pieces of information, but considering I remember being on Atlantis, and I had corroboration from another chap that remembered being on Atlantis, we will be discussing what life was like on Atlantis. Yes, what I was doing, what I'd seen other people doing, and what was possible. Okay, but some of the other topics I will be discussing over the next little while. Okay, and bear in mind, this is one a week. Accelerated healing, Tartarian life, as in what is life like in what most people call hell. Okay, walk-ins and walkouts, numerology, base 12. Okay, the differences in astrology, the flaws that I ran into in astrology, where I will be able to explain why the flaws are there and how they came about. We're also going to be looking into religions, into the Elfid race, into what doppelgangers are. These are either ones that people have asked me to bring about, have asked me to cover. If you've got topics that you would like more in-depth information on, absolutely ask. Drop me a line in the comments, send me a private message. But if you're sending me a private message, for pity's sakes, tell me who you are and how we connected. Okay, and don't forget to include what the question is. Okay, I will still be the first Friday of every month. I will still be on Spaced Out Radio until he decides otherwise. Okay, and that'll be from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific time. Okay, but I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. Okay, the real nice part about this, from my standpoint, is I know this is where I belong at this point. Okay. Angels are life. Good evening. Glad you made it. You know, the reality is I figured out where I'm heading this time in life. Okay. I already have a very solid path that I'm following. Okay. The videos are only part of it. The books are another part. I already have found myself somebody, well, more to the point, they found me, that in time, assuming that when I ask them they don't say no, I already know that's the person I'm going to end up marrying and going to end up spending the rest of my life with. Okay. Now, if I get my way, I should still be here. Well, I'm 50. I'll be 59 in a week. And I am still looking at aiming to see the 22nd century in a functionally healthy body. And yes, that means I got about another 80 years here. Okay. The funny part about it from my end is, as far as I'm concerned, it's completely doable. The human body, the corporeal body, replaces, and modern research indicates that the corporeal body replaces every cell every 7 years. Well, with this in mind, there's no reason I shouldn't be able to bring it together. Okay. But that being said, that is certainly where the goals are. So am I looking at going home anytime soon? Not permanently. I was told point blank that's just not going to happen. But it boils down to an issue of deciding that's the path I'm following. And assuming I don't get told no, that's the path that I'll end up following. And rest assured, for those of you that are questioning, will you ever find somebody that you can have in your life? The answer is yes. If somebody can tolerate me, rest assured, they'll be able to tolerate you. Okay. But you have to realize, and everybody has to do this, myself included, okay, is we have to realize that in order to move forward, you have to let go of the negative past. You want to put that in physical terms? Try going across the monkey bars without letting go with the trailing hand. Or try walking without picking the back foot up. See how far you can actually walk forward. My suspicion is that it's not going to work very well. Okay, but again, if you've got topics that you would like to hear about in more depth, you know, the ones I've got here are, what are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We are looking currently at 2 months worth of copies already. Yeah, and you know, Poetically Mistaken is writing, my friend who channels prefers not to research many things, as it seems to allow a sense of clear validation for the practitioner when they find the info they have linked synchronistically. Boy, that came out really, really poorly. Ultimately, poetically, that is the same situation I go into. The information I've got, okay, I've had the CIA show up on my doorstep looking for the information I've got. Right. Donald Trump, before he was president, had a complete dossier on me. Right. But I don't research anything. I just simply go, this is what I'm sensing, this is what I remember, and then let other people corroborate it. You know, to the point that it wasn't until my father's deathbed that he corroborated most of what I was going through. You know, the reality of it is, from my standpoint, I get really confused with modern computers. You know, it's really kind of twisted. I used to, up until this year, I couldn't find a local menu on my computer. which was a real deterrent for trying to research anything. But you learn to work with it. And this is why I say you learn how to work with it. And when you're dealing with the soul, with the whole soul connection thing, okay, I am now at a position I used to be, because I was trying to fit in with everybody else. I was trying to do things the way everybody told me I should be, instead of following the path that I knew was the right one. I struggled day and night just trying to keep a little bit ahead. At this point, and I'm sure a lot of you agree with will relate to this. I don't know about you, but I absolutely despise housework. However, I am fortunately now, I'm finally in a position where I can actually go and say, okay, I don't like housework. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not overly wealthy, but I can now hire somebody to come in and do it. Now, the funny part there is you might look at that and go, well, it's your house. You should clean it up or get your kid to. Probably should in other people's eyes. In my opinion, it boils down to this. If I don't desire to do it, and I'm willing to pay somebody an honest day's pay for an honest day's work, okay, it puts the money back in their pocket. They can go and do their thing. I can continue doing what I enjoy doing, which I enjoy writing. I do not enjoy having a back pain. This is not my idea of enjoyable. But by working with somebody that is willing to do it, whether they enjoy it or not is not my concern. The fact that they're willing to do it and I'm able to pay for it. If I wasn't able to pay for it, I'd carry on doing it myself. But I'm not a millionaire, but I will tell you this. There's a saying that goes, champagne tastes on a beer bottle budget. That'd be me. Don't really care one way or the other how other people see it. In my eyes, it really boils down to this. And it took a long time to get here. And this was one of the things I came here to do. One of my real wisdoms that I came here to learn, to remember, was that my opinion, my outlook on me, was far more important than everybody else's. My last lifetime, and quite frankly, 2,000 years ago, I spent, 1,600 years ago, were both excessively violent, like way beyond normal. And I will get into those at some other time. And it's possible. That said, we are at the 10 o'clock mark. So absolutely, if you haven't yet, hit that little button at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen there and subscribe to the channel. If you like the videos, give us a thumbs up. And I will be back in touch with you pretty shortly. Next week, we'll be talking about Atlantis. Next weekend. Okay? Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.